Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here to the Biscuits, Bits, and Politics meeting today. So, we are really excited to have you here. As we know, a lot is going on in the nation. So, we want to hear your views and your thoughts on everything that's going on, election 2024 related. I was about to say 2025. I'm already ready for Kamala to be president. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. I'm Latanya West. I'm the managing editor of the Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, and I'm going to introduce the one and the only publisher, Dr. John E. Warren, in just a second. How are you feeling today? Are you ready for a good discussion? Meaty, substantive, not afraid to speak your mind if you have to and if you want to. All right, so I think you're ready, Dr. Warren. So I'm going to introduce you again, the one, the only, the publisher of the Voice and Viewpoint newspaper, Dr. John E. Warren.
Well, you just heard from the brains behind the operation, okay? Tanya has allowed me to go into active retirement, all right? And so we have a phenomenal staff here, and they are here. They're all scattered around, and I want them to, I'm going to have them stand so you can meet the people who are here. I think it's important. You have Macy standing over here with a camera, okay? And opposite Macy on the other side, we have Tahoot with us, all right? And Tahoot does, she's Tanya's backup. And you met Sabine, and Jayla is Director of First Impression. She's your first contact there, okay? Sabine right here, she is HR and all the people. If you want to do something with the paper, she's the first person that you reach. Because people be coming up to me, I want to do this. I said, don't tell me, I won't remember. Tell staff, okay? And Maria, would you hold your hand up? Maria back there. Maria is our social media analyst, okay? And so Maria tells us every day what's happening on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, who looked at what, how many seconds they stayed on the page, which pictures they watched, the whole bit. So we get all of that going. And we have moved, we're going to always be print, but we're moving into a digital age here. So now 3 times a week, we're publishing news bites. And so that's whatever news is happening, we're uploading. We are under contracts with CNN and Associated Press, and we have other media outlets like our NMPA media. So we're getting news from all over the world, and we're picking the things that we can put in here in the paper to share with you, because we have the world living in San Diego, okay? And so we have people following us now in about 7 or 8 countries. I get nervous sometimes. At one point, China was following us so much, I got real nervous about them. And you know what they were up to. So far, Putin hasn't joined them, so we're good. And the Ukraine isn't, and Taiwan came a couple of times, so I don't know. We're just keeping up with all of this because it's important in terms of where we live and what we're doing. So I wanted to share those things with you as we move forward. Now, this is the first time we've been able to return to doing Biscuits, Grits, and Politics here, because this is where we started. But with the pandemic, we had to move out of here because we just couldn't get people in. So this is the first event. Our next event is going to be on election night, November 5th. And we're going to have a watch party here, same setup, from 5 in the afternoon until 11 at night. And open seating. We say 5 in the afternoon because the polls on the East Coast at 8 o'clock, which is 5 o'clock here. And not only will we be watching local elections, but we have a camera set up in terms of the TV, and so that we can pull up CNN, KUSI, we can follow state stuff at the same time. And so you're welcome to come by if you want to. I know a lot of people like to go downtown. I did for a few years, and it got to be a real challenge. So we're excited about what we can do right here in our neighborhood. Okay, our next Biscuit Grits and Politics is going to be on November 19th, and we'll be advertising it in the paper. That one is going to be designed to deal with black businesses and public policy. And so if you're a business owner or you know somebody in business or you're thinking about being in business, it's something that you don't want to miss, because I'm going to be sharing with you the things that late Pastor Jerry and I taught when we first created the Black Chamber of Commerce 30-some years ago here. And we created it at our dining room table. We brought the board there. We indoctrinated in terms of what a chamber does and how it works, and then we went out. And so if you're involved with a business, you don't have to, this is not to supplant the chamber, but I'm bringing you the information that you get that will help you with your business decisions, okay? Because one of the things I did in the early days is if you were starting a business and you came to us, I helped you decide whether you should be a corporation, limited partnership, LLC, or whatever. And so I brought all of my legal experience to help you decide what would be the best model for you. And that was based on what I had already done back in Washington at Howard University, where they had the Carlton, our first graduate from Gold Coast to Howard. Give him a hand. Okay. All right. He was the first person that Gold Coast Classic sent to Howard. All right. And so we are sharing information. Folks, there's enough information out there to make all of us rich if that's what you want. You just got to know which buttons to push. And so we're going to help you look at those buttons while we do information. So having said that, today what we're doing, and I designed today so that when I said politics, I wanted it to be an opportunity for us to have a candid discussion. And when I say a candid discussion, some of you have questions about the political process. Some of you have comments. And this is a safe place in which to express your comment or ask the question. We don't care here if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, none of the above, okay? All we want to do is make sure we have an informed community, because knowledge is power. And we don't want our community making knee-jerk reactions to things when we have information. And so we have the mic here, and you can go back and eat as much as you want. And I don't think you'll be able to ask the question that I can't answer. I'm that, as the old man used to say, no brag, just fact. Just because of all of this political stuff. We're dealing with register of voters here, and people are talking about them. Well, what you don't know is that 50 years ago, I was a register of voters in Washington, D.C. I helped design their voting precincts, their first election that they had for local elections, hand ballots, the whole bit. So you name it, I've already done it in terms of the political process. And I want to help us understand any questions that we have. So when I move over here, what I'm going to do is mention a couple of things. One of the things I want to mention outright is that we're fortunate to have one of our favorite candidates with us this morning. We didn't make this a candidate political thing, but we wanted to, because she's so close to us, we wanted to have Lachey Collins Sharp come and be with us this morning, and she's come to be here. So before we go further, I just want Lachey to come up, give her a chance to say a couple of words, and if she's not having any opportunity that you won't have, you'll be able to say a couple of words. The only thing I ask when you speak is that you remember that we're sharing time with other people. If 8:30 comes and you still have unanswered questions, I'll still be here. If you have to leave, we won't take it personal. We'll understand, okay? So either way, it's going to work out. So Lachey, you want to, because you know our candidates, they're always on the move. I went to Candidates Anonymous years ago, so I'm cured. Okay, there you go.
All right. Good morning. Oh, see, yeah, so the food is good. Nobody's fallen asleep again yet or anything. No, I am Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins, candidate for California State Assembly to represent the 79th. I was going to do some talking points and all of that. Let me push that stuff to the side. The main reason why I'm running is honestly because of you guys. The community needs someone who has a strong voice, someone who understands the district. When I say understands, I mean the inside and out. I'm born and raised in Southeast San Diego, product of Lincoln High School, proud, proud Hornet, also attended San Diego State University. But I am the most qualified candidate for this position. When I say I'm qualified, it's not just because I was born and raised, but it's because I do have a vested interest in this district. I'm not doing this because I have some type of, I guess you could say visions of running for another office and so forth. But I'm doing this because I'm tired of us being left behind. I'm tired of us having to continue to beg for crumbs and trying to figure out where's the money going. Why is the quality of education within our district still a big issue? Why are we still having the housing issue? Why are we still having the homelessness issue? Why are our veterans still being left behind? There are so many other things so many other questions that I have. And it's my job to do what I can to get those answers and make sure that you have a voice in this. Know with me, you do not have to worry about me leaving you out. You will always have a seat at the table with me. When it comes down to these hard-fought decisions, I'll be calling Dr. Warren. I'll be calling all of you guys in this room to say, hey, before I make this move, before I present this legislative idea, what are your thoughts? What are your values? What do you think we need to do to move forward? This is our collective responsibility. This is not about me. Me running is because I am you. We share in these same type of experiences. And that's important for people to know and for people to understand. I'm not one to talk about my opponent, but I need to make sure you guys know for a fact. I'm not taking big money from developers. I'm not belittling our community to where we're talking down to our community members and riding on this high horse throughout this campaign. I'm not doing that. I'm not going around the district covering up other people's signs because they want to move forward and try to get ahead. I'm running my campaign with clear integrity. It is important that you have someone who understands how to cultivate positive relationships and trusting relationships. And that's what I do in my everyday job as community engagement specialist. I do that work for the entire county of San Diego, meaning the County Office of Education for San Diego. That stuff is extremely important. I don't want to take a long, drawn-out speech because we have a lot of things to get to, but I'm standing here today telling you, vote your values. Vote your values. With any candidate, I don't care who was at the top or at the bottom, if you do not see yourself within that particular candidate and do not see yourself within that message, that is not who you need to be voting for. Please stand your ground, do your research, and make sure that that person is going to be your voice 100%. I am a mother of 2 beautiful children. That's why I'm telling you, I have a vested interest in this. Because when I'm gone, they will be here and there will be some more children to come after me. If we do not take a stand out and get stuff right, I don't know what any of us are doing here in this room. So let's do what we can to fight for what we know is right and what we know is just and elect the right people to represent us and elevate our voices. And that's what I'm here to do, is to make sure you have a voice. Our voices together equal power. And without you, I am not me. So I need you to help me out in this office. Know that we are a partner together, and I'm going to stop there because he was coming to the mic anyway.
There you go. See, that's important because most candidates don't know when to stop talking, and then they lose, okay? So everybody knows, we know who Lachey is, and we're excited that she's here. All right. Thank you so much. I want to say, let's give her a hand in terms of it. We appreciate it. Okay. I have additional staff members that keep filtering in. Emily Jenkins just came. Emily, would you hold up your hand so people can see you? Okay. All right. Emily has worked on our Stop the Hate program, which was very important in terms of what we're doing, and we're just kind of winding down. Dr. Thompson, we have this partnership, and so you see GOD Radio on here, and both Dr. Thompsons are here today. The other Dr. Michelle Thompson is sitting there, and let me just tell you all, her doctorate is legitimate, okay? It's not one of them crackerjack things, all right? Because right now we got so many people calling themselves doctor, you don't know who's what, okay? But she's as legitimate as Dr. Leonard Thompson is legitimate. And another person I want to acknowledge here today, which is we're just so proud to have, He always makes me feel like I'm in diapers when I'm around him. Okay, because I'm 79 in a couple of weeks, and he's always reminding me. He says, "I'm going to be 89." Bishop Dixon, stand please. All right, Bishop Roy Dixon. Okay, and he's a December person. All right, so he says he's 89. He's pushing for the 90. Yeah, he's looking for the big 90 coming up. And okay, and so we know that he was the founder of Faith Chapel, which is now the International Church of Hope there. And so we have another person back there. Then we get into questions. We have another bishop with us today, and some of you all know him, and is Bishop William Benson. And Bishop Benson, I keep telling him this, he's being groomed to be the bishop of the apostolic church movement in the country. So they done latched onto him, and he's over expanding areas. Bishop, come on, stand up, man. Don't be all bashful. Gee whiz. All right, there you go. Yeah, so he's in and out of town, moving around. Okay, and we're very pleased to have Captain Cooper with us today.
Captain Cooper, please stand. I mean, he told Peterson.
You know what? Every time he gets out of uniform, I get confused. All right. Captain Vernon Peterson. Captain Peterson, stand for a moment. Captain Peterson, he is the commander of the Southeastern Division, okay? And he recently did something that we never had done before. He changed the storefront hours for that office from 10 to 7, because they used to just roll up the tent at 4 o'clock or whatever, and you go knock on the door, they wouldn't even answer. So he's made it so, and he wants to hear from you. If you come up there for anything, you want to let him know. He's an active member of Black Men and Women United. He's on every week, and he's accessible. He's made it clear to his officers there's no more curbing of us. All right, and he's following up on pretense stops. You know, when people stop you and try to figure out what they stopped you for, when they really stopped you just because you're black. Okay, so he's doing all of this for us, so we appreciate, and we have a relationship with him. All right, and we are so pleased to have him. And then I have one of our fellow pastors here, Pastor Hodge, and I mentioned Pastor Hodge because he is a member of the county Leon Williams Human Rights Commission, and he's the one that they jumped on down there because he wouldn't vote for a LGBTQ measure, and when they asked him why, he quoted the scripture that was the foundation for his position, and then they got mad about him quoting the scripture and tried to put him off. So I think we're going to end up just dissolving that board eventually because they don't want to act right. And if I'm trying to tell Leon take his name off of it, okay, because it becomes an embarrassment. And so he's very active with us. And the gentleman about to sit down here, this is Dr. Jerome Robinson. And Dr. Robinson was a cardiologist for over 30-some years here in the community. And he is the physician in residence for Black Men and Women United. So every week when we meet, he gives us the update on what's happening with COVID and all of the other elements out there, and the numbers in terms of sick and who's doing what. And so we are very pleased to have him as a part of it. So these were just a few. I don't want anyone to feel slighted if I didn't mention you, but I wanted to hit these persons in case they had to get out of here to go. And so we appreciate having you here. Appreciate Pastor Dixon. And, you know, I do want to make this observation. People be talking about Black Men and Women United. Well, Black Men United was founded with Brother Hamid 2004 or 5 we started. I think it was 2000. Yeah, but it was before then. Okay, yeah. Because no, it was after then. The Million Man March was in 95, coming up on 29 years, okay. So he's one of the founding members of Black Men United. And when you Google Black Men United on the internet, all of the Black Men United you find around the country are offshoots from what we started here. And so I continue it today. We are online every week. If you are African American or Black, you are automatic member, and you're welcome. If you're not, you can only come by invitation, okay? And if you show up and you're not, I'll ask you to leave or I'll cut you off. But and the reason for that, I need you to understand, going all the way back some 20 years, we had to have a safe place for people to meet and talk. And we had so many things happening following the murders that we had. We had people who went out on the streets and challenged the gang members and the whole thing. So we had to have a place where people felt comfortable that they could come and cry and share. And that's why we start restricting who could be there, okay, for that. And it's okay. Other people meet. They don't tell us about it, okay? So why we got to have everything got to be diverse? All right. So we're going to move forward. Okay, here's the game plan. The game plan is to start nationally and to move down the chain. You have the voice and viewpoint with you in that issue, and you don't have to look at it now. Just continue eating and enjoy. But we have all of the voting places in San Diego, all of the drop boxes and locations, okay? And all the information from the Register of Voters. And everybody should have had a ballot by now. People have already started mailing them in. I've had calls in terms of changes on our ballot and the propositions. And so we're helping people. And so at the very top of the chain, we have the president. And when you vote for president, you automatically are voting for vice president. That's why both names appear together. Okay, so you know that. And then we also have on our ballot this year, we have a senator. And the person running for Senate is Adam Schiff, who is a congressman from the Pasadena area, who was also a member of the January 6th committee. And so he's on your ballot twice, and you need to vote for him each time, because on one vote, he's finishing a term, and then on the second vote, he's going for a full term. And so what many of you might not know is that the way our government is set up, the 100 members of the Senate serve for 6 years each, and 1/3 of them is elected so that all of them are not up at the same time. The House on the other end, the members of Congress only serve for 2 years. And so we have Democrats running, and I am encouraging us to vote all Democratic, and I need to give you the reason, okay? In the House of Representatives, we have a brother by the name of Hakeem Jeffries, who is a minority leader. And we are just maybe 3 or 4 votes short of regaining the House of Representatives from the Republicans. If we can do that, he becomes the speaker. And it's important because if Kamala Harris wins the presidency, he needs to be there. We already know that Mike Johnson, who is the Republican speaker at the moment, has already made it clear he's going to try to find all kind of problems, because what he wants to do is delay the certification, okay? And if he can delay the certification, then they can kick it back to the states and to the courts and the whole thing. So we need them. So we need all of the Democrats that are on there, and we've identified other places like board members and Grossmont. You'll see all those people there. What I want to do at this point is I want to open this up from the standpoint that if you have a question or comment about the political process, that's why we say politics. I want you to feel free in this safe space to ask the question or make a comment, and it's open for that. Just don't try to give us a Gettysburg Address, but if you be conscious of other people speaking, it'll work. Okay, so Dr. Thompson has a mic there. Is anyone that has a burning question or comment about the coming election? I know what you see on television, but that doesn't mean that you have your questions answered.
Quick question. So, in this day of misinformation, and I'm here on behalf of the San Diego Black Police Officers Association, not the San Diego Police Officers. And so, for San Diego Black Police Officers Association. In this day and age of misinformation, And for me having two young boys and they're getting all their information via social media, how do we discern, or how do we find out what information is accurate and unbiased? How do we find out that information? How do I tell my kids, okay, don't listen to that, that's misinformation?
So Captain Peterson is raising a question that's on the minds of most Americans at this point, because we have so much false news up there that you can't tell. One of the things we tell people across the country, and it sounds self-serving, is that the black press has been considered for 198 years a trusted messenger. And so we trust and verify. We're in touch with the White House. We're in touch with the political parties. We're in touch with the process. And so if you have a question, then we ask you to cross-check it, you see. I know on one of the networks on Channel 8, they have a fact verification thing. And so there are places that people want to offer you information. I do an interesting thing in terms of news. I listen to CNN, MSNBC, BBC, all of these areas, because you got to get more than one opinion. So if you have a specific question and you're not sure, you can call us. We can direct you maybe to where you can find a resource to look at it. It's just a question of what you really want to know. All right. And I'm glad you mentioned the Black Police Officers Association, because is the POA supporting Turner? We don't know where they're going at this point. We need to follow that. There's so many people in our community that want to vote, but because of nonprofit status or their jobs, they can't take a position. But you do get a vote, and you do get a chance to talk to each other. And I would suggest that you do that if that helps, okay? Other question or comment? Yes, Lachey?
Yes.
Yeah, recording. They got to have your voice.
Please read the paid for buy. So you have the commercials and you have the mailers that are coming. Everything is at the bottom that's letting you know who is actually investing in that particular message. So we already know who is on one side or the other once you do that research from that bottom.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Carla Crudup, a community leader, and I have a question. They are purporting all over the news that the race between Kamala and Trump is just neck and neck. We've been there before with President Obama when they purported those same type of statistics. And when it actually happened, it was a landslide. How do we incentivize people to get out there and vote? That does not mean that you can sit back or feel pessimistic. What can we do locally to help make that happen?
Well, it's a very valid question. What can we do in terms of making it happen? One of the things we often is that we ask people if there are people that you know that need a ride to get to the polls, then you can offer them that ride. California is really weird because, they got precincts in people's garages. And so you got to go look on the list in terms of where it's closest. But let me just say this. If you can't go through all of that and you go to the nearest polling place, you can cast a provisional ballot at any location. And what they do is your name is on the outside of it. They take your ballot, put it in an envelope and seal it. And what they do is they verify that you're a registered voter before the envelope is open when they count those, okay? Because provisional ballots are counted separately. There are 3 different ballot counts. Let me share with you. First of all, they will be counting ballots here. Every state can't do it, but they'll be counting the ballots as they come in by mail, and they will put those results aside because they can't release them. So when 8 o'clock comes on the 5th, the first batch of ballots that they're releasing is what they had already counted, number 1, or there are 2 boxes. There is a ballot box that's from 7 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. And then that ballot box is collected and taken over to start the count. And then the second box is from 2 to 8. So when the polls are closed down and they start reporting, they're really reporting from the first ballot box and those that might have been mailed in. In some jurisdictions, they don't even count the mail-ins until after everything else is done. And so hopefully that's some help. Okay? Our next question. Yes, Bill Country. Okay, wait a moment, she'll give you a mic.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Latrell Crenshaw. I think that's an important point related to the election in terms of what we can do to support candidates that we're invested in particular, given the stakes of the presidential election. I think it's important that people also know and make the distinction that in the election and in the game for the race for president, the number's 270 because this country has the Electoral College, and it's important that people know the role that the Electoral College plays in the outcome of presidential elections. The popular vote doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is the election that happens in each of the 50 states across the country. And so if you have an interest and a vested interest in making sure Kamala Harris gets to the White House, you have to call your friends and family in North Carolina. You have to call them in Georgia. You have to call them in Arizona, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, because those are the states that are going to determine who sits in the White House. And even though California is considered necessarily a safe state for the Democratic Party, it's still important that you vote. But vote in California and call your family and friends in the other states so that we make sure that she gets that number.
Well, I thank you, Latrell, because I was going to mention more about the Electoral College. Most people never knew that the popular vote is not what elects the president, okay, because they hid that when they set the system up, all right? And so the Electoral College votes are tied to the number of elected officials, members of Congress, if you will, and Senate in each state. And so that's why it's so important that we win, because some states have a situation where one winner takes all the Electoral College votes. I think like in Pennsylvania, they probably have 19 Electoral College votes, as opposed to a place like Nebraska that only has one vote, okay? And so these things get to be important. And this is how the determination was made earlier that Biden couldn't win, because they were counting the potential Electoral College votes. Now, what happened last election cycle, we saw that a number of states, a part of the whole conspiracy from the other side, had created fake electors, and they tried to get them in to vote. It's December the 19th that all of the Electoral College votes are counted in every state. And on January 6th, they go to the Congress, and that's why on January 6th, there was a riot and everything, because they were trying to stop the certification. The Congress has to certify, okay? And the reason that Pence, as they say, is not on the ballot this time, because the vice president is president of the Senate. And so he plays a role in terms of that certification process, okay? And Pence abandoned his instructions from Trump, and he and Nancy Pelosi, as you will remember, reconvened about 9 o'clock that night, or 11 o'clock, I think it was even later, and they made sure that the transition, the certification was completed for the transition of power to occur. So that's why what Latrell is saying is so important. And California, many of you don't know it, but we have probably the largest number of electors, because we have 52 members of Congress, and 40 of those are Democrats, 12 of them are Republican. And so we're considered blue and safe, but that doesn't mean we can't vote, because that Senate vote where we need Adam Schiff and we need all of these Democrats, that's where if we don't vote, we might get the electoral, but we'll lose what we need, because it will do Kamala Harris no good to win the presidency and have a House and a Senate that are controlled by the Republicans seeking to do to her what they did to Obama. Okay, so that's very important, and this is so we'll know all of this. Okay, additional question or comment, because this is the way we wanted this to flow. That's why we call it politics. I'll take the lady right here, Dr. Miller. I recognize you from your picture. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Brenda Miller, and I'm perseverating over these propositions. And the one that just keeps me.
Dr. Miller, will you speak loudly into the mic because we're recording?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay. I'm Dr. Brenda Miller, and I'm perseverating over these propositions. And the one that keeps me puzzled is proposition number 33. And the pros and the cons, they sound very similar. But the one, and I do go to the supporters. And when I was reviewing the supporters, one thing that as far as for Proposition 33 is California Democratic Party, California Nurses Association, Tenants Together. But then when I went to the against, I'm looking at California Seniors Alliance and California Chambers of Commerce, California Senior Senate Tony Atkins. So when I look at this, then I'm still not clear about Proposition 33. I'm leaning towards for only because I'm a nurse, and California Nursing Association is for.
Let me help you with that. Most people don't understand Proposition 33. Okay. The first warning signal there is that all of the people who are opposing it represent money interests in the state. Here's the history. In 1995, there was a bill, a law passed called the Acosta-Hawkins Act, and it dealt with a degree of rent control in the state. And so what we have, because cities like LA have some rent control, is in different places in the state. The rent control, though, that was allowed went to multifamily dwellings. In other words, apartment complexes or duplexes, if you will. What happened is, in the housing crash in 2009, people lost their homes, and those who lost their homes had their homes purchased by investors. And so what the investors did, at first they had made their money on selling mortgages to people like the Wall Street, and they in turn were selling them to people like the Emirates. And so the mortgages were flying all over the place. Investors discovered that if we buy the houses, we can rent them back to the people who lost them, and we can charge them more money than they were actually paying in their housing note, because they would want to live as close to the comfort level that they had as possible. And so Acosta-Hawkins did not cover single-family dwellings. And single-family dwellings is what people lost in terms of their homes. Okay, so in 2015, we had a proposition come forward, because we get propositions when members of the legislature will not act. The proposition is the safety valve for the public to still get stuff enacted. So people got the signatures and they got it out there, and it failed because the same money interests defeated proposition in 2015. They came back in 2018 and tried again. In 2018, it was Proposition 10. And they bought off a number of us, and that's a whole story in itself I won't go into. And people were given money to oppose Proposition 10. So now we have 33 coming again. And it's important because what's happening with no control over single dwelling units, people are raising rent so that if you were paying $1,800 on a mortgage, now you're renting the same house for $4,000, and they can raise the price as often as they want to. On multiple units, there are limits on how much you can raise it and when you can raise it. See, so that's what it's all about. So if you're for housing, number one, then you want to be looking at supporting Proposition 33. Now, let me say, we have a situation in San Diego. They did a tenants protection ordinance here, and they tried to have you think that that was the solution to controlling rents. I remember a couple of landlords went down before the city council, and one got up and said, "We're very good to our tenants. Everybody that moves in, we give them a bottle of champagne and a bouquet of flowers." Okay, they don't tell you after that we raise the rent. Okay, and so what we've been doing, my staff here, we've been investigating to find out how many housing permits, building permits are being granted, because it's not a question of affordable units, it's a question of available units. And you see all those high rises downtown, they're all sitting empty, and they're writing them off every year as a tax write-off. And they were built by developers because the whole idea downtown is to make San Diego surpass San Francisco in terms of the cost of living. All right, and that's how bad it's getting. So you can't even get one of those high rises. The latest ones they built, I think they're selling for $2 or $3 million if you're on the ground floor, and it just goes up from there. Horton Plaza has been rebuilt as a tech thing to rally Silicon Valley. Okay, so obviously there's no room for poor people here, and we have to fight to be here. Now, my last note on that, 49% of the people who live in San Diego County are renters. So if 49% were voting, we could change things, right? But the renters are voting, and that's the problem. All right. So we could do a seminar on that later because I got all kinds of information on it. All right. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Anyone else have a question or comment? Where? Yes.
Good morning.
Brother Hamid.
I'm Brother Hamid with the National Black Contractors Association. And one of the things that, we're here to discuss biscuit, grits, and politics. And one of the things that we have been duped on in terms of as a people, there are tricky languages. My father, 92 years old, bless your soul, Brother Dixon, you're going to catch him pretty soon. My mother was 102, but she supported the Civil Rights Initiative, thinking that she was supporting a Dr. Martin Luther King's initiative. Bishop Benson and yourself and others have fought against measures like Measure D, which was looted as safeguarding San Diego, but they put black faces on there that misled the people to think that this was a good thing for us. But as we look at we talk about Proposition 209, which the proponents of or the supporters of that initiative said, well, we can't do anything because Proposition 209 doesn't allow us to have inclusion and participation. But yet and still, you set a policy that gives you 10% so-called minority participation, when heretofore, when we had an affirmative action program, it was 20%. But yet and still, when you set these policies up, you're excluding the people that you're supposed to be helping. So how do we change the narrative from deceiving people with these tricky measures as Safeguard San Diego? We're talking about Community Benefits Agreement, which is a collective bargain agreement, and they're using our black electives to destroy our only self-interest, the only thing close to having an affirmative action program, which is a 20% mandated hiring practice requirements through Section 77.5 of the Labor Code for apprenticeships, which we happen to have here in San Diego, the first and only black apprenticeship program in our country, and our black electives turn the blind eye and vote against us. How do you do that, Dr. Warren?
Well, let me tell you, I told you at the beginning that you would not be able to answer a question that I couldn't answer. And I told you that was no brag, just fact, okay? Let me deal with the first part of what you said. The first part of what you said about collective bargaining and units. In my second love in life, I was a labor lawyer, okay? And so what happens is all of these bargaining units where people want to start a union or they want to influence what's happening, the National Labor Relations Board is the element that oversees that. And the issue, as I was sharing with you in a recent conversation, in some places they are open shop, in some places they're closed shop. Now, closed shop means that you must belong to a union if you work, because it's your dues that helps keep the union going, okay? And so that's why we see all these battles like with Walmart in the South. They've gone in a couple of times and they failed to get the numbers, and it's been challenged and everything because the Labor Relations Board is overseeing it. You never want to have a lot of activity with the Labor Relations Board when you have a Republican-controlled Congress and White House, because they will always be pro-business and they will appoint their interests to the board, and the board won't necessarily make the best of decisions on their behalf. Open shop means that you don't have to belong to the union, but even though you don't belong to the union, you get the benefits of whatever the union negotiates. And so the unions don't like that because they want everybody to be involved. So this is a very important issue, and that's why you see so much of labor supporting the Democratic slate, because the working people are there, except for the first time we see the split with the automobile industry where they don't want to endorse, and it's very interesting. While the UAW didn't endorse directly, the members are endorsing, because for the first time in history, Kamala Harris, as the vice president, she walked the picket line. It was unheard of a president getting involved in a strike. And she walked the picket line in terms of helping people. Now, on the second part of your question, I'm really going to answer it in even more detail on November 19th. What happens is you have people that get an idea. So let me give this example. You have interest groups. The people in this table here could decide we got an interest in something that we want to see put on the ballot, like Prop 33, shall we say. Well, you got a couple of billionaires in this group over here, all right, who really are orientated toward the working poor. So what they do is they go through the petition process with the state. They gather the 500,000 or 600,000 signatures they need. That's the people you see down there asking you to sign. They don't care. Some of them getting $5 a signature. They don't care whether you registered or not. They just need your name there, so that's more money they can count. Once they turn those names in, the Secretary of State, they go through the process and verify the number that they need to certify that issue to go on a ballot. Hence, it becomes a proposition. Now, what happened is you started as an interest group. Now that you have a proposition, you got to support it. You become what I call a pressure group. And the pressure group organizes in such a way, I don't know where my phone is, doesn't matter. The pressure group organizes in such a way that they motivate people to vote their interests. Now, here's one of the tricks, Hamid, to what you just said, and to you, Dr. Miller. Sometimes we saw this happen up in the Carlsbad or Escondido area. A building group will see that community members have started a measure against them building a development. So the building group will get signatures and create an element to go on the ballot, and it will sound like the first measure. And the whole idea is to have the two measures sound so much alike that when they start running the commercials, they got enough money to run more commercials than your group, and you vote for their group, and you kill your measure and you give them their measure. So that's why it's so important that when people are calling you to be a part of something, you need to look and see what's behind it. You know, a lot of us, you can get us, just say we having a meeting and we got hors d'oeuvres. We got some food in the back, okay? And there's Bishop Dixon, you'll appreciate this. I had a pastor once that had a group of pastors at a meeting with a person who was running for office. I won't say what office. They took pictures with this person after he had fed them, and then he took their pictures and put it on his campaign literature. And so I said to the pastors, in Psalms it says, if you are given to an appetite, you should cut your throat. Okay? Because you got to be careful who feeds you. All right? And what does Washington and Sacramento run on? Food. There's always receptions, and there's booze, and there's food, and there's just stuff. And they get you feeling good, and they fed you, and you leave there. Yeah, I'm going to vote for them. But you haven't read the small print, okay? So that's why we have to have more of these discussion groups, Brother Hamid. And we do this on the East Coast. Out here We don't do it. We tried after the Million Man March, having local organizing groups. It didn't last. We tried to do it here. When I was a vice president of a policy institute in D.C., at least once a month, we would go up to Harvard University for a dinner meeting at night, and I was doing social insurance and income security. And we would have these discussion groups in which we were planning the legislative agenda for the next time our party got in power. Okay? So what the Heritage Institute just did is not new. They did this back in 2016, and they had the plan then for what Trump started when he got elected, okay? And his first goal was to undo every executive order that Obama did, because Obama was forced to use executive orders since he couldn't get anything passed otherwise, okay? So we have to pay attention. Okay, I'll be doing more of that. Bishop Dixon, please.
Yes, I heard you answer a question earlier concerning the Electoral College. You said that the popular vote did not elect the president. I don't want people discouraged in voting. So I think you can answer that a little differently, because the popular vote elects the Electoral College.
Right.
Okay.
The important Bishop is pointing out that even though it's not the popular vote that elects the president, it is the popular vote that determines the Electoral College. Okay, and so that's why it's still critical that you vote. If in doubt, vote. Okay. Now, we've come a long ways from the day in which on election day they had to start closing the liquor stores in parts of the country because people would go and buy cases of half a pints of liquor, and they would go out and find people on the street, and they would give them either a pint of liquor or $5 and take them to the polls to vote. Okay, and so that's why you had so many dead people voting in Chicago, Bishop. Okay, so we don't even have those kind of politics out here. We don't even know about it. But I mean, there's a lot that goes on. Okay, any other question or comment? Because we're gonna Janet. Did someone give her a mic?
I'd like to say that this is my first really ever getting involved with any kind of politics. But the thing I wanted to ask is like, how do I say it? It's just like so much deception. I mean, really a lot of deceptions that's going on. And you're like, it can get really confusing. I mean, especially if you're not raised up in politics and you figure, well, they're just a bunch of, no good people and they're already against us, and you already got your opinion already settled within you. But I came out here today because I really want to know how I can be a benefit or help our people, to get the things we want. People can come from all parts of the country, and then you look at it, and it's like, well, you guys have been here for the longest of time. So, like, it's like, what have you done? I mean, you black people, our folks, we've been here all this time, and you come from another country, and now you got a store. You don't come in here with cars. I won't take long, I promise you. You don't come in. You come here, got granted with cars and this and a home, and like all this other time you've been here all these years. Like you look down like you ain't nothing almost. So I'm like saying I appreciate you opening up this here. I appreciate myself coming in and want to find out and really be a help, one extra help towards. Getting some of the things that we want and need. And maybe there's lies that has been out here, and we don't really know. We're made to look at things. We're made to look at things like, well, them blacks ain't really doing anything. I mean, from my perspective, I say, well, wow, what are we doing? It's like they're doing this, and they're not really. I feel like I'm taking a long time.
I'm going to help you.
I'm frustrated.
I'm going to help you, Janice.
That's just it. I'm frustrated. Okay.
let me answer you from a historical standpoint, real brief. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, he made this statement, which is still so relevant today. He said that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Eternal vigilance. So we must be watchful at all times. And people who oppose our interests know that we have taken so much for granted. When you read the paper that's out this week, the editorial, and it's online, and I'm telling you to remember what Dr. King said. And Dr. King, on May 17th, May 17th, 1957, in Washington, D.C., 3 years after the Brown versus Board of Education decision, he gave a speech to some 20,000 people. In the speech, he said, "Give us the ballot." And he says, if you give us the ballot, then we will put the right people in office. And he goes down, you can read it. Now, this was 8 years before we got the Voting Rights Act, okay? And so we know that in the South with the Voting Rights Act, if you were black and you went to register to vote, they gave you a jar of jelly beans and said, tell us how many jelly beans in the jar. Okay, if you couldn't tell them how many jelly beans in the jar, they wouldn't let you register. Okay, they always tell this joke about the man that says, okay, recite the Constitution for me in English. So the black person had learned it in English. And after he did it in English, the man says, well, now let's do it in French. And so the black person asked the watcher, said, do you speak French? He said, no. So the whole idea was to make it difficult, okay? And so what you're seeing, Janet, is that when people come here to do the citizenship, they go through a process. I'm often telling people here, if you tune in to Univision and some of those stations, they sell citizenship packages for like they're probably $100 now. They used to be $50 or $75. And the citizenship packages have Constitution, Declaration, everything you want to know about government. So by the time those people raise their hand, they know more about government than you do. And they register to vote, and they're excited about the chance to vote. We have lost the excitement because the generation that died and suffered for us to be able to vote is gone, and we didn't pick up it, okay? And so that's what we're trying to do now. I say that the enemy is not the other people trying to block us. The enemy is our own apathy at this point. And so we have to vote. But thank you for your comment. Someone else, question or comment? For those who have to leave in terms of the clock, we're going to continue as long as you have some questions or discussion. Dr. Robinson.
I want to emphasize a point that Dr. Warren made, and that is this year it's very important that you call those folks in those other states, cities, counties, and make sure that they vote Democratic. And I say that with no qualm whatsoever because the Republican Party does not exist. It exists as a cult of Donald Trump. And those folks have lots of things in store for us if we don't. So that I want to just emphasize that. The second thing I want to emphasize is the question that was brought up about where do I get good information? There's more misinformation out there on the net, other places, that is geared to misinform. And particularly I speak from the perspective of health. There's more misinformation about health than there is good information. I bring this up at the county meetings. They haven't listened to what I've said so far because no one is making effort to do something with regard to good information about health. Now, for those of you who can, not as a commercial, but I'll just let you know, I've dealt with this on the Voice with the Black Men and Women United here for 4.5 years, talking about COVID, talking about the things you need to know. I do this from the perspective of the podcast I'm going to start soon called WIIFM Health. You want to know what that means? What's in it for me? Okay? So if you want to, tune into us, join Black Men and Women United so that you can listen to what we say, because there's lots of discussions just like this that'll keep you informed, and I'll try to bring a message that's coherent that's what's in it for you so that you have a better understanding of what's going on. And remember, call your friends in other states, other counties, and so forth, and make sure they vote Democratic, because otherwise you will get something you do not want to see. If you think the 60s were bad, if you think Reconstruction was bad, well, you don't know what's in store for us if Donald Trump gets elected.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Anyone else, question or comment as we're winding the clock here? We don't want you to leave that you didn't get something answered if you had a question or if you had a comment. This is the time to express yourself, and nobody's going to judge what you say. Remember, Dr. Thompson prayed over everybody's statement so they would feel comfortable in terms of putting it out there. If you would like seconds, we still have more food back there. You just can't take none with you unless you're eating it, but you can eat all you want while you're here, okay? About that. No carry-outs. No doggy bags. Is there a question someplace? Comment? Okay. Thank you. Yes,
my name
sir.
is Alfred Claiborne. I'm just saying,
Well, can we make sure his mic is on?
I look at these.
Okay.
Sorry. I look at these propositions, and they all got all kinds of propositions, and I say, well, I'm just going to vote no on all of them. And I know that that's not correct. I know I should do some things, but I'm glad that I came today to know that I need to vote yes on 33, and I need to look at the others. That's all.
Well, we have recommendations there for the others, and if you have any particular questions before you leave, see me, and I will try to address them for you. Okay, because I spent a lot of time. The LOA, the Legislative Analyst Office in the Sacramento, is the one that puts out the book with the propositions, and they put the pros and cons in there. So that's probably one of the most objective places you're going to find a position. And then people will put their spin on it as they talk about it. I did a session recently in Sacramento on propositions, and one of the people on the panel was one of the folks that had a position with the organization that he worked with. So you have to, when you hear people give you an opinion, you have to look at who they're speaking for. Are they speaking for themselves, or are they speaking for another interest? All right. And if someone is paying them, then look at who's paying them and see if what they say lines up with what you think, and how does it line up with the people paying them for what's being said, okay? And so there's nothing wrong with making an honest dollar. So if you want to be hired to lobby for someone, you can do that. But those of us who are listening, we have to be discerning in terms of what we respond to. All right? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
My question goes back to the electoral vote certification. If Kamala wins and is our next president, and since she's the vice president, who will do the certification? Who will preside over the certification? Will she or someone else?
Well, what happens is a very important question, because after November 5, Kamala Harris will still be vice president. And so as vice president, she is still president of the Senate. And even if the Senate switches Republican, that only comes in January when the new Senate is sworn in. So the Senate will still be Democratic. The danger, and the House will still be Republican. The danger is in January, the new Congress is sworn in, and the new Congress will be sworn in before the certification is voted on. And so that means then that Mike Johnson would still be the speaker, and Kamala would be sitting where Pence sat before. Johnson is no Nancy Pelosi, so he's already working in the opposite direction. The way we defeat that is to turn out in such record numbers that the number of people voting increases the number that she gets in each state for the Electoral College. So where 270 votes is what's needed to be certified, if she ends up with 280 or 290 votes or whatever, or 300, because of a new groundswell of people voting, it won't be anything left for the Republicans to play with. It'll be so overwhelming that they won't work, because they already tried in Georgia. Trump had 3 of his people put on the board of elections, and the first thing they did was pass a provision, since they outnumbered the other 2. They passed a provision requiring that the ballots this year will be hand counted. And if you hand counting today a few million ballots, it's going to be a long time counting. And that's part of the plan to delay. But if Kamala can win like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, if she wins these other battleground states, it won't matter, okay? If she can pull Arizona, and looks like she will, all of those things are important. That's why what was said earlier about calling your friends and relatives out of state to make sure that they vote. And I can tell you that process works very, very well. We had to use it once upon a time in D.C. because D.C. is a federal district. It's not a state, because the Congress didn't want the capital to be in a state. And so Congress controls the budget for D.C., and they were treating it like a plantation. And so what the people in D.C. did was, those members of Congress from southern states that were obstacles to getting what D.C. needed, they started sending people to those districts to find people running against them and to finance those folks so that they could get them out of office. So we have to be creative, okay? And even though California is a blue state, when Trump was running before and he won, the people here who were pro-Trump, they got on the phone and created phone banks for their friends and red state supporters in other states so that they could be making phone calls to help them win the election. So we can't go on recess until after it's over. That's the bottom line, okay? And we got to vote locally, right, Dr. Miller? We got to vote locally, all right? And so far, I haven't seen anyone black that's running that's not the kind of person we want to support, because we can't just go by their color, you know. All skin is not kin. So we have to be real careful. But we're checking them out, and if we find we made a mistake, we'll correct it, all right? So if there are any, Bishop Dixon?
Yeah, another question. As you know, I used to own all of the Taco Bell franchises in this neighborhood.
Right.
Now there's none. I saw a list this morning of Walgreens, 7-Elevens, what's the coffee company name? Starbucks. Thousands of them are closing. Most of them are going to be, it's all over the nation, but most of them are going to be in the black neighborhoods. Can you answer that as to why that's all happening?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. What did you?
Why is this happening? All the closures of the retail stores.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you, he wants to know why retail stores are closing. And Bishop Dixon was one of the first people to own Taco Bells around here, all over the place. He's been a businessman all his life. Here's the story. Proposition 36 is talking about we want to be tough on crime again. So it wants to undo some of Proposition 47. And what happened in Proposition 47 was that a lot of things that were felonies were reduced to misdemeanors. And the reason the state did it is because California's state prison system was under receivership by the federal government because of health care issues in prison, living conditions, overcrowded, and the whole bit. So to get out of receivership, what the state did was it passed Proposition 47, and so the things that were felonies became misdemeanors. So no longer did you get locked up for having what was more than just a normal amount of marijuana, you just got a traffic ticket. And so the price of a felony was dropped for a crime became a misdemeanor if it was $950, that kind of thing. What happened during COVID is that more people started shopping online. And the more people shopped online, the fewer people were going into brick and mortar stores, okay? And so the people who own those stores were feeling a pinch, but they did not want to be seen just closing their stores and yielding to online. At the same time, we had the smash and grab going on, where they were going into stores, mobs of people stealing everything and going out. And so what happened was that a decision was made that if we get tough on crime again, bring back 3 strikes and do all of those things, that's going to help us reduce that. And because of the smash and grab, we have to close our stores. The retail industry did a survey even before that, which proved, no, that's not why you're closing. You're closing because you don't have the traffic, and without the traffic, you're not getting the overhead support, and so you're going to hide your closure behind this proposition so people will think that it's because of crime or anticipated crime that you're closing, but you're really closing because you're losing money. So that's the answer to the question, Bishop. Okay, Prop 36, vote against it. Okay?
Well, Dr. Warren, I think, right back here, I think that we have made it to the end of our time.
Yes.
I want to make sure that you have closing remarks, and anybody else who would like to stay around and ask questions, we are here. We definitely want to thank everybody. And how do y'all like our new location? Yeah, it's quite intimate. And we love having you all here, and we want to thank you so much. Spread the word. Dr. Warren, we have the watch night coming up. Sorry, it got real churchy right there. It said watch night. I meant the watch party.
And we want to remind people, we'll be right here, same setup. We have the TV. We'll be pulling stuff in November 5th, starting at 5 p.m., 5 till 11. Yes, dear. Did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. I thought my wife was giving me a signal, you know. She's E.F. Hutton. When she stops, I listen. All right. Okay. All right. I want to thank you on behalf of staff. My staff people kept hiding and everything here. They were being so helpful. But I want to thank you for coming out and being a part of this. And we want you to spread the word that people are welcome. This is not Black Men United. This is Biscuit Grits and Politics. So everybody is welcome to come to this, okay? And I mean, $20. Gee whiz. That's almost as much as 2 packs of Coke at the store, right? Coca-Cola. I better be specific about the Coke.
Praise the Lord, yes.
Better be very specific when I say Coke, huh? Okay. Okay. And so we want to thank you. LaTanya, you have any closing comments you want to make? Okay. Please check out our news bites. Please download our app so you can keep up with it. Captain Peterson, thank you so much. I know I'm meeting with the chief soon, and we're going to be doing things. You might not be out in the Grossmont area where Dr. Miller is, but you know people. We're all over the county, folks. 89 zip codes, 17 cities, and 39 unincorporated areas. So wherever you got somebody, they know Voice and Viewpoint, you know them, you can tell them to vote. Amen. I thank you. This is going to be edited down, and it'll be put on our website, and you can follow it. Please stay, have more food if you like. I'm going to sit down and get a plate. Thank you again. All right.